Hello and welcome to the Giraffe Social Media Podcast. It's what social media managers are talking about. I'm your host, Caitlin McKenzie, and in today's group chat episode, we're getting into the details of community management. So today we've got with us three members of the team. We've got Chloe, one of our social media assistants.
Hi.
We've got Laura, who's one of our fabulous social media managers.
Hello.
And Phil, who is one of our managing directors here at Giraffe.
Hello.
Team question, guys, is what was the first piece of music you bought and what format was it? I feel like this is going to date us, or who wants to go first?
I'll go first. I think the first piece of music that I bought for myself was the first One Direction album, which hi, I'm a 1D girl. And
No
I put it
shame.
on iTunes. And it's just I remember having listening parties with my friends, listening to all the songs. So that's some nostalgia there.
Yeah. I think so. Mine was a Kelly Clarkson CD. And I remember using my pocket money on it and taking it home and listening to it religiously from my CD player, day in, day out, and singing.
How about you, Phil?
A little bit different to the two you've just mentioned. I think the first album I bought on my own was a Rammstein album, which is like a German heavy metal band. Yeah, I think my uncle gave me some money and I went into Virgin Megastore, which also dates me, and bought a Rammstein album.
Mine is probably quite problematic because I remember going into HMV when I must have been so young, like 6 or 7, with my pocket money and buying Ricky Martin's Livin' La Vida Loca on cassette and just listening to it until the cassette burnt through, living my best La Vida Loca, whatever that means for a 7-year-old. Brilliant. Well, let's jump into social media, guys, as that's what is our bread and butter. So this week we're talking about community management. I mean, for anyone who doesn't know, I'm sure you all do, but community management is the way of engaging with your followers online. So whether that be people who do already follow you or reaching out to other users who could be your potential new followers. So what do you guys think? I know a lot of businesses don't include it in their strategy, but do we think it's essential?
I definitely do. I think the way I look at it is sort of two different caveats. So the first way I think of it is when we're looking at these platforms, the best way to sort of beat the algorithms is we generally get out what we put in. So the more that we're interacting with people on our feeds and they're generally interacting back with us, that's going to push us up. So not only is that going to help your content to be viewed, but it's also a great way to get engagement. But also when we think of our own online experiences, the brands that we admire and really think about are the ones that, respond and interact and create that experience for their audience. So, not only in a inquiry way and responding to customer, inquiries, but who doesn't love reading Netflix witty responses on Facebook every once in a while? So yeah, I think it's really important for building your brand voice and kind of building that reputation for yourself.
Yeah,
I think it's also. Oh, go ahead, Laura.
No, I was just going to second what Chloe said. I think it's really, really important that all customers see a brand responding. Again, it builds brand voice. It adds personality as well. A lot of brands used to be kind of very faceless, but if you have that community management, you're able to become a less faceless brand. And also it sort of builds into social listening as well, understanding what your customers want from you, and being able to apply that into your social strategy as well.
Yeah, so to expand on, I think that the bigger the brand, the more important it is as well, because I think there's an expectation these days that customers can speak to brands online if they have a complaint or they have a question. So I think there's definitely an expectation with larger brands, and I think with smaller brands, it's definitely the idea that I think it's Seth Godin who talks about the true 1,000 fans. It's much better to have 1,000 really bought in fans than 1 million who don't really care. And And I think the way you build that relationship is through conversations, meaningful interactions with sort of followers or fans or these sorts of things.
Yeah, I completely agree with all of you guys. I think it's a lot of businesses and brands look for engagement, right? But I think they do forget that to get engagement, you have to give engagement. If you're expecting people to comment on your posts, it can't just be like them shouting into the void. You've got to hear them and show that you hear them and engage with them. I mean, I know there's a lot of conversation about different algorithms and different platforms and what one works best. Where's the best place to actually speak to your followers? Do you guys have any opinions on that? Like which platform is the best place to really engage as opposed to just feeding out content?
I think it depends really on what your brand is and, you know, what your product you're selling, what you're trying to achieve. For me, I'd say my favorite platforms for community engagement are Instagram and Twitter, just because there's so much opportunity not only to have those inbound comments, but there's lots of ways to explore new audiences and discover new people to interact with. You know, you can use that through TweetDeck, through Sprout or the Explore page. So yeah, those are my two favorites personally. What do you guys?
Yeah, I would agree completely that those two are the two platforms that lend themselves to it the best. I think with some platforms it can almost be difficult to sort of do like outbound community management rather than sort of replying to messages and comments that come in. I think Facebook, for example, is really good for that. But I think Twitter and Instagram kind of let you, like you just say, Chloe, sort of explore and find conversations that would be sort of appropriate for that brand to jump in and sort of engage with potential sort of customers.
Yeah, definitely, I agree. And I think going back to Twitter, I think consumers predominantly use that platform to engage with a brand immediately because of the tagging feature. And I think Instagram is a great way for people to interact with a brand on images, and a brand equally to interact with consumers through the Explore feed. I know the way I do it for some clients is by looking at relevant hashtags, seeing what people are talking about, seeing what people are posting. And it helps with the overall strategy, having that conversation with people and seeing what people are talking about.
Yeah, I completely agree with you guys. I think Instagram is maybe just the number one. It just seems so powerful in my opinion. Just the hashtags and the amount of hashtags people use per post, the accepted amount is 30, right? And it's kind of, you know, normalized to use all 30 hashtags. So when you're delving into people's content, you can find users and you can see that they're the relevant people that you're looking for. And like you say, like you can bring them to your Chloe, you can bring them yourselves to their attention by engaging. And I think it's almost untapped and the potential is unlimited. I guess it's all about the amount of time you're willing to put into it. What do you guys think is the right amount of time to be spending on community management?
I think community management is definitely like one of the things that when we're speaking to businesses about helping them, it's one of the things that they're often looking for support with because it's just so time consuming. And I think on the other side of that, it's also quite hard to measure. I think it's one of the parts of social which has like the least tangible results in terms of, you know, the metric side of things. So I know for some brands it can be something that they really put off purely because the amount of time it can take is quite daunting. But, you know, I think really the answer is as much as you can, like realistically, because I think it's one of those things that there's so many conversations happening that it's sort of limitless, really. Well, sort of you can dive into and like you were saying a minute ago, sort of introducing your brand to other people who may not have heard of you.
How about you guys? Do you have a sort of amount of time you spend per account that you work on? I mean, obviously it varies in terms of us by what package that people are working with, of course, but perhaps on your own accounts, like what do you think is the ideal? Is there a golden spot maybe?
Yeah, I think it varies on sort of what platform you're on. For me, I'm like an Instagram girl, so Instagram is like my favorite platform ever. I tend to look at, and I know we'll get into strategies later, but if you post 10 minutes, if you interact with people 10 minutes before you upload and 10 minutes after, I feel like that's a really great time because you're bringing your attention to yourself right before you're about to post something about your company or post about a new product. So by bringing that attention to you, you're not sure how many people are going to visit your page and then, see that post. And for your existing followers, that again is just going to bring you up in the algorithm. So yeah, I sort of try and tie everything into, how am I going to best reward myself and how is this going to best benefit me, even though it's just that one section of your strategy.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome bit of advice. How about you, Laura? Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I think just before I know a post is going out, sort of going on the explore feed on Instagram, checking what's on there, interacting with people, kind of getting the name of the brand out there before posts go out. It just feels like it works a little bit better, and people then tend to interact with you back. I think community management is probably sort of an underrated form of social, I would say.
For sure.
And I think, again, it can be really time consuming for brands to do, which is why maybe it's sort of underrated, because people maybe don't realize the value of it. So I think as much sort of time as you can spending on interacting, and it's not just interacting sort of meaningless comments. I think really, really delving into users and asking questions, and again, like talking about things that they would want a conversation about.
I think that's the danger with community management, is that for some brands you can look at their interactions and they all seem quite surface level, quite, like you say, Chloe, Laura, not really sort of going into like detail or asking questions or having like meaningful conversations. They're more sort of like, oh, this is a great photo, or thanks for sharing that, and that can just come across really sort of fake and almost they'd be better not posting anything at that point.
Do you think some of that comes out of sort of like a worry to be speaking on behalf of the brand, maybe when the business gets to a certain size? I guess that's something for internal social media teams to discuss, like who has that authority to speak. But I feel like you're about to say something on that, Chloe, maybe.
Yeah. I think, it comes back to, if you have an established voice and you know where you want your company to go, and you've talked about it both internally or maybe with an agency who's running your social media, it shouldn't be an issue, because I think you're not going to go out there and put out a big political statement or something like that. You're just replying to someone about their day or their experience with a product. So I don't think you should be worried about that so much. I think if you're focused really on that comment and providing a genuine response, it should come quite naturally. Yeah.
No, totally. I guess it comes down to really knowing your brand, right? And really knowing your brand tone of voice and making sure that's executed in every aspect of social, not just in the posts. Cool. So what tactics and like techniques do you guys have it? Because there's a million ways you can come at community management, right? Do you guys have any recommended ways of looking for content to engage with or people to engage with? Do you keep it mostly inbound or outbound? What are you working with?
I think I'll leave it to the two social media managers, the two experts in the room.
My sort of tactic, particularly on Instagram, is the hashtag tactic. Searching for the hashtags relevant to that brand and seeing what comes up on the explore feed, and that way, not only are you able to engage with users on their photos, but you can also then get like suggested accounts to follow or suggested accounts to comment on, and after you've kind of done that a few times, then your explore feed is sort of tailored to you, and then it becomes more easier to see those accounts on the explore feed that are better to engage with and have a conversation with. And I think for Twitter and TweetDeck, it's just great, and hashtags work on Twitter in the same way, just looking for sort of what's relevant. Definitely.
Yeah, I think it's very easy to sort of, look at your inbound comments, reply to those and think, great, I'm done. I've completed community engagement. But I think my favorite part and probably the most important part is, sourcing those outbound audiences and new niches. And I think it's very important to always have in the back of your mind, like, what is your company's objective or your client's objective? And what are you trying to achieve by communicating with this person? Like, it's all well and good to, drop a comment, but if it has no purpose or no meaning, you're not really going to get anything out of it. So, choose audiences and businesses or people who, show that they have an interest in the industry that you work in. I think that's the most important thing. If you're commenting on, a new homeowner and your products, and maybe like for renters, that's a really weird example. I don't know why that came to me. But, like, you need to think about those sort of things to really get the most out of your community engagement.
Yeah, I really think that's like the biggest key of community engagement is like knowing who your customer is, having like a really clear idea of your like typical customer profile, so that you're making sure that every community engagement that you sort of produce is impactful. It's hitting someone that is going to connect with the brand, could become a customer, or a partner in some aspects. I know that we use Twitter lists quite a lot as well. So like, picking out people that we think, right, we really want to engage with these 100 people or these 100 brands, putting them in the Twitter list, and then just loading up that feed and sort of hand picking the conversations that are the best to kind of like drop into. So yeah, I completely agree with Chloe that I think who you're engaging with is almost just as important as how.
Yeah, definitely. It comes down to, I think, it is a question of quality versus quantity, because it takes time, right? It takes time to go out and find the accounts that are your target customer. And that's something, I'm not sure who reminded me of it just there, but that's the benefit of social media, isn't it? Because people have profiles. Compare that to any other kind of marketing where you put up a billboard, you don't know anything really about the people walking past that billboard, but you can see your followers, you can see new users out there, you can see so much information about them on social media. So you can figure out if that is your target customer, and then, yeah, like we say, invest the time in interacting with them.
I think that's especially true with the big brands as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever engaged with like a big company on Twitter or on Instagram, and if they've taken the time to like quickly look at your profile or comment on something about like maybe where you are, or if your picture shows you surfing or something, and they, again, random example, definitely don't surf, but say that you did, if they've picked up on that and asked you about it, I think it sparks such a more meaningful connection with the brand than if they were to just sort of reply quite generically.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like a warm, fuzzy feeling, right? It's the social side of social media that people seem to forget about. They just think, right, I'm going to put these pictures up. I think it's going to have this copy. I'm going to target it to these people. Job's done. But it is, like we say, it's a new kind of marketing. It is completely different, and it's social. I know like when brands reply to my comments and stuff, I'm like, oh my goodness, I am famous. They love me on a personal level. But that feeling translates. Like, I'm definitely gonna, not only from an algorithm perspective are you more likely to see their post because you've had that interaction, but from a personal level, I'm like, well, that brand cares. I don't know if you guys had any sort of similar interactions to that or experiences.
Yeah, definitely. I think anytime like a brand engages with you in a meaningful way on social, I think there's lots of stats out there that kind of show you're more likely to purchase their products, to recommend their product or service. I know every time that I complain to Domino's on Twitter, they always are very quick to reply. So and I keep buying Domino's, so I guess it works.
Yeah,
definitely. I think all my most memorable experiences, the brands that I think of when it comes to social media, are the ones that have gotten back to me or dropped a comment or have a quick to respond. So I think that shows, really, doesn't it, that community management is key.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how about, I mean, we're all I mean, three of us are social media managers, but Phil, obviously, you're very well versed in the world of it all. But in terms of, the job, like it's a key part of our roles, it's community management, engaging with the followers of the accounts that we work with. And do you enjoy it? Like, I mean, personally, I'll go first. I get a real kick out of it sometimes if I create a post and someone in terms of inbound, and someone comments and they're like, oh, I love this, or they ask an engaged question, you just get a little buzz, like it's a moment of connection. And then of course that can continue and you can reply and have a natural conversation. I just think those little moments are unexpected, and like you don't schedule them into your day necessarily, but they're kind of some of the most rewarding moments. You're really like, it's a way to, even though you're just in front of a computer, you're connecting with real people.
Yeah, definitely. And I think when you look back at sort of how marketing started off, being brands talking at consumers, and how far it's come since then, that sort of two-way communication that's really important. Even when I think about my own behaviours on social and with brands, again, I agree. I think it's really rewarding to sort of, have that recognition from brands if you like their products or you like their services. Yeah, I think it is a really rewarding part, particularly from a social media manager point of view, to be that brand that's engaging with those consumers, whether that be inbound or outbound. Again, that's also equally as rewarding.
I think it's important to note as well that obviously when you start the process of community engagement, you're not going to have 100 comments day one.
Right.
So
so neat.
Just to manage expectations here. But one of my favorite parts is I've been working with a client since January. And when we started the community engagement process, I'd post something, I'd be like, yes, this is brilliant. Like, can't wait to read the comments. And, that'd be maybe one. And now, 7 months into the year, it's so rewarding to see that we've built that engagement and we've built that community. And now we have, maybe 5 comments, maybe 10 comments. So that's definitely my favorite part, is watching that community grow, like the more you work at it. But I also, thought it was important to just throw in there that it doesn't happen overnight.
No.
Yeah,
Typical social media manager managing expectations. I have to admit, though, I think I have a lot of admiration for you guys, because it's very it's one thing to learn one brand and their tone of voice and their customer, but you guys obviously represent several brands, and you almost have to be a chameleon to sort of be like, right now I'm working on this account, so my tone of voice is like this, these are the types of people I'm going to speak to, and then you have to like switch completely and go to a different brand entirely with a different tone of voice. So, I think, for someone who's working on one brand, that can be something really nice to sort of really pour yourself into, to learn that tone of voice. But when you're working in an agency, you have to be so adaptable to be able to work with different brands, different industries, which can make community management more challenging, but also potentially like more fun, because you're able to dip into all these different communities on social media.
That is one of the best parts. I feel switching that voice up.
Sometimes I get like, there'll be a moment where I've caught myself and I've like thrown some emojis in and I'm like, oh no, dial it back. Because I guess every industry has a different expected tone of voice, and it can be a learning curve. I think when you move into a new one, I'm working with some financial clients and like learning how to talk from that informed perspective, but also very professional, but still approachable. It's kind of fun to just like figure out. It's like learning a new language, right?
Yeah, it is.
It's funny how emojis have become so important in terms of like tone of voice, in terms of like, could I use emojis? Which emojis could I get away with using? It's so interesting.
Can you imagine to carry on?
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, I know my clients that don't use emojis because they're probably a little bit more up on the professional spectrum. I'm like, this post is missing something. Like it's missing an emoji.
It's so funny. Can you imagine like 20 years ago, and then, or like maybe not even 20 years ago, like 5 years ago, and like board marketing meetings and stuff, like emojis being such a big like thing to talk about. I felt when they first came in, they were like, I don't know, just like something that the kids used, like twains. But no,
it's a lovely thought to think there's boardrooms in the country with like several middle-aged to old people just talking about whether they should be using emojis, which emojis, what are emojis. I love it.
What is the significance of the poop emoji? Like, Oh man. Can look forward to it in future weeks. One of our team members, Dom, gives us an amazing bit of Monday motivation in the form of a quote, which is very unique. He can't be with us today. So Laura had a great one, which I'm just gonna find really quickly that she shared today.
Queen of quotes.
Queen of quotes.
I mean,
We love a motivational quote. So I've got it here. It was, every experience, no matter how bad it seems, holds within it a blessing of some kind. The goal is to find it. And that's from Buddha.
Oh.
Very enlightened. Awesome. Well, that's everything for today. Thank you so much to everyone who tuned in today. Don't forget to subscribe to future episodes so you don't miss a thing. You can also connect with us on all major social channels and let us know what you thought about today's episode. We've been Giraffe Social Media. You've been amazing. See you next time. Said who?
Nailed it, guys. Well done.
I think we all need to have like our own little catchphrase.
I was about to say
Like
great,
when you
but I
introduce
think
someone, they
that's
sort of have their own way of saying hi.
Does anyone watch Community, like Magnitude, like pop?
That would have been amazing if you'd done that.
For some reason, it's just making me think. Did you guys ever watch Storage Hunters?
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, you know when like so be like, and we have Laura, money.